Good evening and welcome to the rest of the news. We have a fantastic program for you today. Our special guest is Colin Gunn, who is in Texas, and he is making a movie about socialized medicine, and the name of it is Wait Till It's Free.
Yeah, so this is our new film that we've just released. The DVD is available now on WTI3.com, and it's a film about socialized medicine. And we've traveled across America, and we also went to Europe to look into this issue, because obviously with Obamacare and what's been going on in healthcare in America for many years has been this progress towards its socialization. And we argue that's a very bad thing, not just for our own liberty, but also for life itself. And the victim often of socialized medicine is the unborn child, as well as the elderly and infirm. And we're proving the case that how you pay for healthcare has everything to do with the kind of quality of service that you receive. And so socialized medicine is a very dangerous thing.
Okay, and our other special guest is Matt Singleton.
Hey, how's it going, everybody?
Good to see you, Matt. Okay, Colin, I know you've got different things you want to say, but the thing that really bothers me the most about Obamacare is that everything is going up. My co-payments on my medicines are going up. My co-pays on office visits seem to be going up. My premiums seem to be going up. And what do you think, Matt? Is everything going up on your insurance, or?
Yeah, basically, I didn't really have a job where I could have health insurance, and so it's really kind of hard for me to admit this, but my wife, her business has to take care of it, so then I have to be a burden on her up to about like $400 a month. And,
really?
Yeah.
Is that what it costs?
Yeah, and
boy, that's a lot. Well, of course, I got Medicare. Well, anyway, do you have any comments about that? Colin?
Well, definitely. I mean, what I argue in the movie is that the progress of socialized medicine, or the socialization of the American healthcare system, we went from a relatively free system back in the late 1800s, where a lot of medical services were provided in the free market or through churches or from Christians, to what we have now, which is very secular and very government-controlled form of healthcare. And it's not helped us in terms of costs, and the costs have obviously been rising, and there's many reasons that we go into that in the film. We talk about Medicare and Medicaid. We talk about the push towards employer provided care, which is an American anomaly, where you have to be employed. As Matt was saying, you have to be employed to have good health insurance, and that creates job lock, where people have very few choices about their careers, and if they don't work for a big company, then they can't have health insurance. That's a very bad way of doing things in America, and we explain why that happened and why we do things the way we do them. Now, Obamacare is just doubling down on all of the bad ideas before it. So, it didn't get bad with Obamacare. It was already bad, and when Obamacare came along, you get all of the additional unintended consequences of government intrusion, and one of those unintended consequences is escalating cost. And what do we find when Obama tries to make healthcare affordable, just like any government person trying to do something that they're not equipped to do? The exact opposite happens, and people's health insurance goes up. And this is a very dangerous system. And what we propose in our film is to get away from that government-paid healthcare system and that third-party reliance, and move towards a much freer and a system with much more liberty that could really bless, especially Christians, who are going to find it very difficult to find a place within the network that Obama has created.
You know something, Mr. Gunn? One thing I've noticed is that there's no real control over the cost. Everybody's arguing about, well, do we want the insurance to just focus on it, or do we want the government to work with the insurance to focus on it? But you never actually say, when are we going to like challenge the cost? Because these these huge prices just keep on going up with these drug companies. Meanwhile, I've heard that drug companies can work out special deals with lobbyists to where the competition is just not allowed to get in there.
Right.
Why can't we just start our own drug company right now and sell cheap stuff,
Well, we couldn't. Patent laws would prevent it, and they've, all of the laws in America are designed by industry itself. So the healthcare industry controls the healthcare system, and so the insurance companies, the hospital industry, and big pharma really write the legislation, including Obamacare. So they're favoring themselves. It's not this, we send someone to Washington and they serve our interests. Well, they go to Washington, they pair up with lobbyists from K Street who work for the pharmaceutical industry, and all the legislation, including the patent laws that protect these industries significantly, making them very expensive. These drugs where you can go to Canada and get them for a lot less, or anywhere else in the world often. And so, the government became the biggest payer to the pharmaceutical industry. The biggest purchaser of pharmaceuticals in America, in the world rather, is America, the American government. And so we're also a very dependent nation on pharmaceuticals, not by accident, I believe, by the fact that the pharmaceutical industry has such power, and we're led with a system that leads with the use of pharmaceuticals rather than alternative medicines. And I'm not against pharmaceuticals per se, but what I am against is the power that they wield. And so prices have always gone up, and prices go up because we have a cartel. We have a hospital cartel. We even have a doctor cartel with the AMA. We have a pharmaceutical cartel that works with Washington. And that's what Obamacare is. People talk about it as though it's just a socialist idea. Well, it sort of isn't, sort of isn't. It's a socialist push, but it's also very much a crony capitalist system. So that's sort of part of the reason that we explain in our film of why we have all these expensive costs and continuing rising costs in healthcare.
Yeah. Now, Colin, it's something like only 10% of the doctors in America belong to the AMA.
Yeah, they wield a lot of power, though, as you know. I mean, a lot of doctors have rejected the AMA, and they've joined much better organizations. But the problem is that the AMA still speaks for it. It supported Obamacare.
Yeah, I know.
The hospital industry supported Obamacare. It's all of these big connected organizations, and it's sort of a story. They cease to represent at all the people that they originally were founded for, and they start representing their own interests, and it's about money and power.
Yeah, they made money, I guess, on the deal, and so did the insurance companies. Is that right?
Yeah, they all have a benefit. The insurance companies, we talk about the exchanges. Well, an exchange sounds like a free market idea, but of course it isn't. It's a form of the bailing out of insurance policies. If the insurance companies lose money, then they're bailed out by the government on bad policies. So it demolishes the whole idea and concept of insurance, which isn't necessarily a bad idea. It's just that we don't really have insurance like we used to have in America. We have all these mandated aspects of what our policies have to cover. So people can't just shop easily for a policy that fits exactly their needs. It's engineered with a very collectivist mindset through the mandates, the Obamacare mandates of what insurance policy can be. So we don't have a lot of liberty there. The doctors don't have a lot of liberty. As you know, doctors are under the burden of all of the codes that they have to be aware of for Medicare and their insurance companies, and so it's damaged the doctor-patient relationship. And that's what we're saying to restore that relationship, the free market, that simple transaction between the provider of a service and the receiver, the doctor and the patient. If you restore that relationship, it would also improve the relationship and therefore the health of Americans as they go to their doctor, and they're treated not as someone who's just leeching from the system like they are in the UK. They would be treated as someone who's a customer, and that's the best kind of relationship you can have between your doctor, right?
Yes, that's very important. Go ahead, Matt.
Something that kind of hits me as a minister, I've had to visit a lot of people in the hospital. I mean, just this year, a lot of different people in a lot of different situations and relatives, and some people who've passed away since then. And, it's so hard when you're sitting there in that room and they give you all this technical language. And basically, what they mean is things like, okay, well, we can't keep so and so alive for so long. We're going to have to ship them out. We're going to have to, get out of here, go somewhere else.
Turn off the machine or something.
Yeah, and basically, I've had to be around that situation. I mean, I've had to watch people die, sometimes friends, sometimes relatives, and stuff like that. And it is just so hard, and it's just so cruel. And it is kind of funny how they set up the doctor like the patsy to do it, even though it's the people in power saying, oh, we're going to help you so much. But really what they're going to do is they're going to help themselves. And they're controlling, when we say your life, we always use that metaphorically, but here we're saying they're controlling your life.
Yeah, life and death.
Well, that's a very serious issue, and this is why I think this film is important for people, that this is life and death, and it's certainly life and death for people in the UK when a government-controlled system really enacted a form of involuntary euthanasia through the Liverpool Care Pathway, which was a palliative care program, but really people were just being executed, and what they were doing was removing their food and their fluids, and they would be put in a morphine drip, and in a couple of days, like any of us under that circumstance, we would die. And they weren't genuinely dying. I mean, it's very hard to determine when someone is going to die, so they make a best guess. But it's actually, when you look into it, it's for their own benefit. So the hospitals were receiving bonuses for putting people on the pathway. So hundreds of thousands of people died in the UK based on the way they do healthcare. And so I'm not saying the doctors were bad or the nurses were bad. I'm saying based on the economics of the system, there was no incentive on the doctor to keep their patient, which we would also call a customer, alive. So how you pay for healthcare has everything to do with the kind of healthcare you receive. And so we're warning people as you go towards a socialized system, and that's what we have under Obamacare to an extent. You're going to see more of this, and that's when we talk about the death panels. The Independent Payment Advisory Board will be adjudicating and deciding what kind of care people receive. And of course, the victim in that is often the Christian, the elderly, the infirm, and those that can't speak for themselves. They are the ones that will suffer under Obamacare, where the money will be going to perform abortions and other things that you don't want to be paying for.
Well, and one thing when we see like socialism in general, we always see this thing of like the one-size-fits-all approach, which destroys creativity and imagination and stuff like that, and that makes the job harder. And I think about that in the medical field when we start, focusing on, well, it's just going to be drugs or surgery, and therefore, on one level, they're not going to, they don't want to endorse supplements or any type of vitamins, but then they also are okay with giving a patient narcotic painkillers that are highly addictive. And so, it just seems like once you start having that hierarchical system, you start having less freedom of healthcare. Maybe a doctor would have a better individual choice, and yet everything in the system and, these insurance companies and stuff like that is pushing them to buy these more expensive drugs. Do this process. Don't suggest something totally different.
You're absolutely right. So what we've created is an intermediary or an interloper between the patient and the doctor. And in the American system, that can be an insurance agent or some insurance company that makes the decisions on the behalf of the doctor. So the doctor is not talking to the patient about what care they need. They're talking to the insurance company about what care they can give. And that breaks the model of what the best healthcare could be. Now, there's good news. In the film, we cover some of the good news, and we talk about an independent healthcare system that we still have in America, which is oriented around cash, paying for services, not through a third party, because at the end of the day, a third party doesn't guarantee you health care. People think because they're insured that they have health care, and that's how Obamacare is pitched. It's like get your health care. Well, no one can own health care. Health care is only ever provided by healthcare professionals, not always, but usually, and that's something that you've got no right or demand upon. When you have an insurance policy, well, that's just an agreement with your insurer to potentially pay for particular kinds of coverage or health services. So people are kind of deluded on that. But so that my argument is the best option is for people to have cash reserves for their needs and be able to pay for them and pay for it out with often the hospital system, because of the hospitals and the cartel they've structured and the pricing system that dominates in there, the hugely expensive bills that are sent out to people for very minor things. You know, the $25 aspirin is what they're famous for. We're saying that there's other ways to do healthcare that doesn't involve the hospitals where possible, you know, so going to a cash-only clinic, and we have examples of one in Oklahoma where there's a surgery center where you pay cash, and it's about a fifth of the price of most hospitals, the price for their operations, and people actually come from Canada down to that Oklahoma surgery center. Another example we give is a cash-only clinic in Texas, not far from me, where the doctor only accepts cash, doesn't deal with third party or government, and is able to really build that relationship with their patients. And even although the patients might qualify for Medicare or Medicaid, they still rather pay cash to get a service that's of a particular quality and have a good relationship with their physician. So there's good news here. In fact, I have a clip, and if you play the clip, we have a story as well that sort of extends the idea into sort of more of the Christian realm. In the Christian realm, one of the issues is that we have to think seriously about being charitable. And so we'll play a clip right now, and it's from a clinic up in New Jersey, and that it shows you some of what two Christian doctors are doing there to provide charitable care for the genuine poor in their area.
So we decided if we were going to care for the poor and we didn't want to abandon the poor, we would set up a clinic apart from our private practice and have all volunteers and just private donations pay the bills. And it wound up to be a very, very good model.
In Matthew 25, I was hungry and you fed me. I was thirsty and gave me something to drink. I was sick and you cared for me. It should not be something unusual. This should be a normal thing for every church to reach out. It's not the job of the state.
You know, the Family Research Council is in Washington, D.C., and they called some kind of Obama Center and told them that they wanted a policy where they didn't have to pay for abortion. And they said, no, there isn't any Obamacare policy. They all pay for abortion. Is that true or not?
Yeah, so they're finding out. I can't vouch, and I haven't got the research in front of me to show that, but that's sort of what the battleground is that the big issue there is that what we call healthcare, what you and I would call healthcare, isn't what they're talking about when they're talking about healthcare. So they're saying something that everyone seems to think is a good idea, which is free healthcare or cheap healthcare for everyone. Well, it's not just the cheap part we have a problem with, or the affordable part, which we think is an illusion. It's the word healthcare. They think healthcare is something else. We think it's broken legs and heart attacks. What they really mean by healthcare is abortion rights, euthanasia, eugenics, and potentially the subsidization of lifestyle choices that are harmful to your health, like homosexuality or drug abuse or alcoholism, or all the things that in the National Health Service in the UK, they subsidize those lifestyles. They create a moral hazard because there's no cost consequences to what we would call sinful living, but you could call it harmful lifestyle choices. And people, routinely suffer because they don't have an economic correction to their bad choices. So that's again a story we have in our film, and that's a good point to bring it up. That when they're talking about healthcare, the left, that is in America, and the Obama administration and others that support Obamacare, they're wanting abortions to be paid for. So they're sneaking them in the insurance, but to be honest, Americans and American Christians have been buying insurance policies that cover abortions anyway, and they've shown a lack of discernment on that. So my argument is think of a voluntary form of cost-sharing needs. A good example would be Samaritan Ministries, where that it's only the money that you send out is only going for healthcare needs and not for abortions and not to subsidize sinful lifestyles. And so that's a great example of why cost-sharing ministry is far better than the insurance programs that many Christians are unaware that they're funding abortions.
And, you know, it seemed to me that because all the money they get is already forced through taxes, the more people die, the more money they get to save.
Right. So you're talking about a very legitimate incentive on the government to ration, and that's what they do, right? So the government's got your money, and if you're elderly, you're not earning anymore, you're not paying into the pot. So, well, what's their incentive? You're not a consumer anymore, and if there was a consumer relationship, I mean, which company would want to see their customers die off? Well, in a socialist system, you become a burden, you become a consumer of a finite resource, and the hospitals go from being, instead of being, seeing patients as customers and treating them well and trying to preserve their life even in the National Health Service, they really don't care and they really don't act appropriately. And if you die, it doesn't make a difference to them.
They may be better off. Okay, let's see your next video because we're running out of time.
Okay, so I'm going to play a clip here, and this clip deals with the elevating costs, and we have a clip that we show how crazy it is and how we pay for healthcare. So we have a gentleman here who talks a little bit about his experience in going and finding out how much an MRI costs, and this is his story.
I had to have another MRI done at another hospital, and instead of an $1,800 bill for an identical test, I was billed $5,500. I said, you know, you're charging me $5,500 for an MRI. I also did a little further research and checked with an insurance company and find out that they pay you $750 for this test. And you willingly and gladly accept their $750.
Let's see your third one.
Well, this clip deals with the issue of Hobby Lobby, and if you know that story, it's very relevant because it's this fight between Christians in America, and in this case, a Christian company dealing with the government. And so if we play this clip, you'll get an idea of how this battle is playing out and why that story was so significant.
Forcing a family to put their family business at risk, if they won't violate their faith, is wrong. It's illegal and it's unconstitutional. And that's what the government is trying to do with the Greens. If the government can tell you that you have no religion in your business, what else can the government do? What else can the government take? If they can take away your faith, they can take away a lot of things. That's why freedom of religion is in the First Amendment.
You know, I think that we have to remember that all of these things are freedoms that we previously had. So the whole point of this healthcare industry is to take away freedoms. When it comes to the government working with the healthcare industry, they're all freedoms and responsibilities that we already had, and now they're being taken away. And
Right. It's terrible. Okay.
That's a great point.
You got another one you want to show us?
Yeah, the last clip here is of Stephen Brill, and Stephen Brill talks about. He's a very interesting guy. He's a New York guy. He talks about the issue. He wrote the Time magazine article "Bitter Pill" and talks about the problems of how we've designed our system, and talks about the little amount of power that people do have when they go and try and purchase health care.
Everything associated with healthcare is just way too high in terms of a comparison of what any other country spends, often to produce better results than we produce in the United States. In any kind of real marketplace, the buyer has some relevant balance of power over the seller, but in the healthcare marketplace, the buyer has no power. The buyer doesn't know what the prices are and can't do anything about the prices, even if he knows what the prices are.
Right. I think that's a very good point. Before, when you went to the doctor was working for you. You were his customer, and his motivation was to help you, the patient. Now, he's not working for the patient anymore. He's working for the Obama. And he's trying to please Obama, and the patient is irrelevant.
It's not how we're helped, it's how we're treated.
That's right.
This has everything to do with the way you pay for health care.
Yes,
so
of course.
dominance of third party, which has been a crisis in our country, and Obamacare does nothing to fix that. So the complete lack of price transparency, where people go in, and it's unlike any other market. No one would do this in shopping for cars or houses, where they would go and not care about the price. But the third party pay system, because we, somehow in America we've decided that it would be nice to feel like it's free when we know it isn't, but we'd like to feel like it's free with our insurance policies. We go in and we have absolutely no clue or care about the price of the healthcare, and of course the hospitals use that to their advantage.
Something that really hit personally to me, because I had a relative pass away kind of early in my personal opinion, who served our country bravely and was under the Veterans Healthcare System. And I knew somebody personally. They have blown the whistle, but they're not legally allowed to talk on my show yet. And basically, they've been talking about how a lot of the patients, a lot of our proud soldiers who've helped our country out so much and sacrificed so much, are being mistreated in the Veterans Healthcare System. Colin, did you go over much of that?
Yeah, we cover that in the film, and we relate to the notion, and I think it's a very defendable notion, that the VA is pretty much the National Health Service, or a form of the British National Health Service in America. It is collectivized, socialized medicine, and it bears all of the marks of that kind of system. The waiting lists, the hidden waiting lists. They do the same thing in the UK, where they have they'll stack people up in gurneys in the corridor, or keep them in ambulances so that they can have better statistics to get better funding from the nationalized healthcare system. So they're basically hiding people, and that's what they were doing with the VA when they had these hidden lists. So they wouldn't be on the official list; they'd be on the hidden sort of pre-list list. And people would die on that list, and they wouldn't be put into the statistics and show the failure of socialized medicine in America. So we have socialized medicine here, and we have, in a way, not just with the VA, but the whole system in its totality is in some ways worse than a socialist system. It's more of a crony capitalist system, so it's a combination of big business and government, and that has more of a fascist kind of economics to it, where people are forced. And a good example is the individual mandate, where the government forces you to buy insurance policies from a private company, which is outrageous if you think about it in a civil liberties perspective. That we should never have the government forcing people to buy anything in our country.
Tell us real quick, how can we get a copy of your movie?
They can go to my website, WTIfree.com, or they can go to colingunn.com. Both those websites, we have DVDs, and our other films are available there as well.
Now spell WTI
Free. Or you can Google Wait Till It's Free, and you'll find us that way as well.
Wait till it's free, and that's the way to get it. Okay, God bless you. Thanks a lot, and tune in again next week for the rest of the news.